Just like having relevant and accurate information is necessary to make sound hiring and lending decisions, being engaged in our community is important. DataFax is proud to support the positives and be a sponsor of the Spark.
Lipscomb & Pitts Insurance is honored to serve the Memphis community for over 60 years. We've always focused on supporting our community and believe in promoting the positives, encouraging engagement, and leading by example. Lipscomb & Pitts Insurance is proud to be a presenting sponsor of the Spark.
Additional funding for the Spark is provided by Christian Brothers University, Mueller Industries, Meriton, United Way of the Mid-South, MyTown Movers, MyTown Roofing, MyTown Miracles, and by Serves.
This month on The Spark, our theme is Restoring Hope. We'll learn more about a center dedicated to connecting individuals with resources they need to begin their journey out of homelessness. A nonprofit working to eradicate human trafficking by empowering survivors, equipping communities, and seeking justice through systematic change. And a company providing cloud services, data centers, and network access to local organizations that's also giving back. We'll also share a special moment from our Spark Awards 2017. Ever been excited by a new idea? Inspired by watching someone lead by example? When we talk about creating change, we start by sharing the stories of everyday heroes making a difference in their own way so we can learn and do the same. This truth is the power behind this show, which is focused on business and community leaders who are leading by example to give back, fuel change, and create new opportunities for the Mid-South. I'm Jeremy Park, and this is The Spark. They're a center dedicated to connecting individuals with the resources they need to begin their journey out of homelessness. We're here with Jared Bingham and Kelsey Johnson with Hospitality Hub. And let's start, Kelsey, with you, Hospitality Hub. Give us a little bit of context for the history of the organization.
Okay, Jared and I have been doing outreach ministry since the early 2000s, mainly focused in 38103. And he was working at a church out east. I was working at a small downtown church that was focusing on homeless ministry at that time, and we came with the idea to help purchase a lot of ID cards, driver's licenses, birth certificates for homeless people, because that was one of the major barriers keeping people from really becoming a citizen, you know, getting a job, getting a place to stay, right, even food stamps, anything. And so that program moved to one of the downtown churches after I left. And in 2007, the Downtown Churches Association, which it is now, decided that instead of every pastor trying to decide, do I loan money to this person who called? Do I give money to this person who dropped by? You know, they're bombarded with people who are poor and homeless asking for help. And so they decided, let's have one place where we have people who are trained, volunteers, small staff, to answer these questions, to make the decision. We'll give money to this place and take this responsibility away from the pastors, give it to someone who will know and understand at street level how best to help somebody. And so that's where the Hospitality Hub was born.
Well, and so there's a physical space, obviously. There's a Hospitality Hub, and those come in, and that's where all of a sudden now you have access to all of these resources. And as you said, being able to genuinely help and connect, but also to have front and center. So whatever the need really is, you can connect and be able to move the needle in a good way.
Exactly. There's so many things that keep a person homeless. And what we do is we do a comprehensive intake interview with you, figure out what is the thing that's keeping you homeless. And then we wrap you up in the supports of our 123 partners and try to get you out of that situation when you're ready.
So Jared, let's go over and talk to you on the work side, so work local, but give us an idea of when you talk about the job side of things and the employment, walk us through those details.
Sure. So the Hospitality Hub has no barrier to entry. We say you don't owe us anything. You don't even owe us the truth. You come in, you tell us your story. We'll try to pull out from your story whatever kernel is we think we can move a little bit to get you towards stability. And so the line in the morning coming through the door is full of folks who have been in such a position for so long that they have no assets anymore at all. And you can imagine it's a little downtrodden. It can be kind of WPA looking. But the work program, by contrast, folks come in the door after they've worked a 5-hour shift and their heads are held a little higher and their shoulders are a little more back. They have a little more optimism in their eyes. They're a little more conversant with each other. So that's sort of basic dignity of valuing somebody in the terms of the market. You know, we pay people a wage to do a job that's valuable in our city.
So walk us through me, because to your point right off the bat, as you said, having a job, dignity, confidence, social skills improve, and obviously then the idea is you take those skills and you can parlay those to an even brighter future, full-time employment, kind of, you know, pushing them along so that they can thrive on their own in so many different ways. So describe kind of the end goal and kind of how we can play a part in all this.
Sure. Well, so asset deprivation is the key problem. Kelsey and I are trying to talk about homelessness because it implies you just give somebody a house and they're all better. But really, you have a depleted asset network. And so some kind of stability, asset stability, is really critical to beginning to compile the same kind of networks that we all have. You know, if I lose my job tomorrow, and if I make my wife really mad tomorrow, then there'll be 50, 60 people who will be ready to take me in, kind of help me out, you know. But if I use up all those 50 or 60 people, I have to kind of build them back one piece at a time. So some kind of asset stability beginning with work, or beginning with a benefits package that we help people find all the time, that just starts the work of not being so isolated. So maybe you make a friend who's not just kind of a street buddy, but is a friend that can be some emotional support. Maybe you start to go to church and you're not just taking, but you're also sort of contributing to the thing. Maybe you start to serve the scrambled eggs at breakfast instead of just being in the line. And slowly by slowly, you build that asset pool until you have a life. You know, that's the kind of life that we all want for ourselves and our loved ones.
So obviously financial contributions are really important for what you do, so helping you there. Volunteerism is extremely important. What's one other way that we can help as the public?
I've got so many different answers to this question.
Pick one, anyone.
He can run it over and over.
Right. My pet project, the thing that I see so much in our city is there is a deficit in support services for women, and that's one of the things we are really focused on for 2017, 2018, 2019 is expanding services to women. Most services are geared toward men, and because the belief is that most homeless people are men, most people in this situation are men, and it's true, but the resources are not distributed in a way that is fair, you know, and so we want to help close that gap, especially in shelter. It hurts my heart that I have to tell a woman I have nowhere for you to go tonight. There's nowhere for you to go, and I want to see that go away. And so it's going to take resources, it's going to take team building, it's going to take people really caring about what happens to women and children at night.
Okay, so go ahead and tell us, where do we go to learn more, to connect in? So website, phone number, where do we go?
You go to hospitalityhub.org. Our phone number is 901-522-1808.
Perfect. Well, I greatly appreciate all you guys do and appreciate you coming on the show and sharing. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jamie.
They're an organization working to eradicate human trafficking. I'm here with the Executive Director for RestoreCorps, Rachel Haga, and let's start with a little description for RestoreCorps. And so give us some history and some context.
Sure. So RestoreCorps was birthed out of the anti-trafficking team of Operation Broken Silence. We started serving human trafficking victims here in Memphis in 2010 under Operation Broken Silence, and then birthed RestoreCorps in 2013. I had been working with human trafficking victims in Southeast Asia for about 2.5 years before I moved back to the States in 2010, and just came back with this ideology of revelation requires response. And so just looking for what that looks like here in Memphis. And thankfully, there were a few other people. One of them had worked with human trafficking in Russia, another in Nepal, and all of us happened to verge on Memphis together and become that team. And thankfully has just through an incredible amount of favor continued to grow and to change. And now we've been on the advisory council for the state of Tennessee, formerly the governor's anti-trafficking task force, for a handful of years. I sit on a federal task force for the region 4 Department of Human Services, and just been able to see a lot of different partnerships make this a subject that Memphis is continually talking about.
Well, and let's talk about the importance of this, and I think, you know, we sit on the I-40 corridor.
Sure.
And I know that that's a big area for human trafficking, unfortunately. So when you look at kind of the newsworthiness of this is extremely, extremely important. But unfortunately, a lot of it does fly under the radar in terms of the work that you're doing. So describe the prevalence, and just when you talk about human trafficking, what does that look like here in the Mid-South?
Sure. So honestly, even in your description, you had mentioned the I-40 corridor, and that does play a part in it. But I think all too often we think that movement along the corridor, movement along the interstates is how human trafficking exists in our community. But really, especially a teenager, a juvenile under 18, never has to leave her house to be trafficked. And so that's been actually a handful of cases we have worked where a juvenile is going to school, coming home, and someone in the neighborhood is exploiting her to have dates with buyers after school on Monday through Friday even, just because she's fearful of what that person might do to her family. And so she is still going to school. She's not leaving her home, and yet she's being exploited for the benefit of this trafficker. And so I think that the reason why it exists is a combination of a number of things. There's poverty, there's vulnerabilities, there's really it comes down to the fact that there's buyers. There's buyers in our community that want to pay for sex for juveniles and with adults that are being exploited to this end. And so where there is a demand, there will always be a supply, because it's profitable for someone to exploit individuals for this need.
And luckily we have you as a fighter to fight against it.
That's the goal, yes.
So talk about on your end, you know, the support you provide, the programs, the intervention. Dive into some of the details.
Sure. So RestoreCorps exists to do, we say in our mission statement that we do three things: empower survivors, equip community, and change systems. So change systems is working with the DA's office, MPD, and others to create what we call Lives We're Saving. It's a prostitution diversion class, because it's impossible for MPD or even the court system in the few minutes that they're interacting with someone being arrested for prostitution to determine if she is out there on her own or if there's an exploiter behind her being arrested. And so that Lives We're Saving class we have once a month, and everyone arrested for prostitution that meets the requirements to come to that class can get that charge off her record and hear from a number of service providers, not just us. We facilitate the class, but even one of the other partners on this show today, Hospitality Hub, comes and offers their services. Salvation Army offers their services. Serenity offers their services. So there's a number of different service providers that make it possible for hopefully those people to have hope, to say there is a way out, your life is worth living, and if whatever you need today, if it's just an ID or if it's a whole conduit to rehab, recovery, and a support system, that's what we're here for. Another kind of system change would be the fact that Tennessee is actually #1 in the nation for our anti-trafficking or counter-trafficking law. So Tennessee has been incredible. The legislators, the governor, there's so many people across our state that has now passed 40+ legislative changes to give Tennessee an A rating in the nation and first in our nation. Empowering survivors is, we do have a survivor residence. There's survivors that live there, but then there's also survivors that we serve in a non-residential component, and we work with them to decrease the vulnerabilities that got them into the life and make sure that they have a sustainable support system. So that can look, again, so many different ways, getting them jobs, getting them health care, getting them new IDs, as we mentioned, because if they don't have an ID, then they're vulnerable to the next person that wants to coerce them because they can't control it. And so equipping communities is like this. It's going to, just this last weekend, we were at an event for Las Americas called Dia del Niño, again, just offering services, making an awareness in any kind of community that might need to know that these resources are available.
Well, tell us where we can learn more. So website, phone number, where do we go?
RestoreCorps.org, RestoreCorps.org. And our phone number is 901-410-3590.
Well, Rachel, thank you for all you do, and I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing, so thank you.
Well, thank you for having us.
The Spark Awards annually recognize and celebrate individuals and organizations that have made outstanding contributions to the community. This year's recipient of the Nonprofit Award for organizations with budgets under $1 million is the Costin Foundation for Pancreatic Cancer Support.
The Herb Costin Foundation was formed in 2003, shortly after the death of my brother, Herb Costin. Several family members and friends wanted to do something to memorialize Herb's name. He was highly thought of in the community, was a great athlete, and had done much for this community. Herb was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer 11 months prior to his death. There was really a lack of communication for Herb when he was fighting this disease. No one in Memphis knew too much about the disease other than his personal doctor. We decided to form a nonprofit corporation to support people who had the disease and to raise funds for research. We have donated over $1.5 million for research and development. Most of those funds we've kept here in Memphis, and we work with a research team at the University of Tennessee Health Sciences Center. We think they do a fantastic job and are making huge developments in the area. We do have a support group. We meet once a month at the Cordova Library. It is it's a wonderful venue. It's a wonderful meeting. There are no support groups in this area. The nearest support groups are St. Louis on the west and Atlanta on the east. So this is something that was badly needed. We didn't really know it at the time, but it was badly needed. And it's very successful, if you can call what we do successful.
We started with tennis tournaments, many of us being involved in tennis. Of course, Herb was an icon in the Memphis tennis community, and we were very fortunate. We had 4 tennis tournaments, great participation, great sponsors, but we needed to cast a wider net. So we chose to branch out, and we're fortunate enough to link up with Start to Finish, and they've been our partner and our management company, and we launched the Kick It 5K at Shelby Farms Park. We've now had 7 Kick It 5Ks. The 2017 Kick It 5K had over 2,000 participants. We raised over $150,000. April 8th, 2018, save the date, is our next Kick It 5K. We also have an annual symposium at the medical school. Dr. Steve Bierman, who's our medical person, brings in a top-notch speaker to the medical school auditorium. Great event. One of the great things we do is provide hope. And when Herb was diagnosed, there was very little hope. I think as an organization, we're able to provide hope to people and their loved ones. And I think that goes a long way.
They're an infrastructure as a service provider, and they're giving back locally. I'm here with the Regional Vice President for Expedient, Jim Cody. And let's start, Jim. Expedient, national organization, impressive legacy, but you've got obviously some Mid-South roots. So give us a little background for Expedient overall.
So Expedient is an infrastructure service provider, which you explained earlier, which really essentially is the cloud, right? It's a technical term for the cloud. We also offer data center and connectivity services around, not here just in Memphis, but also in 6 other cities. We were founded in Pittsburgh in 2001. We opened up Memphis in 2015. I moved here with my family, and we have initiated the revamp of the Hilton Data Center, which is now a 35,000 square foot building with 7,500 square foot of data center floor space. We've hired 16 local employees. I guess I'm not local, so 15 local employees. And we're doing very well in the city and happy to be here.
Well, so let's start with that data center, because when you talk about a data center, it's state of the art. It is climate controlled. It is, I mean, everything. When you walk through there, it's impressive. So describe what this is and why it's so important.
So it's important because the customers that we have rely on us for everything you just described. We have to have redundancies for cooling, for power, for network, for security. And a lot of these customers have compliance requirements that they're in an industry, whether that's retail or banking or healthcare, that they have compliance requirements that they have to have their equipment or their applications in an environment that adheres to these regulatory compliances.
And so these little these servers put off a lot of heat. And so when you walk through, that's where the climate control is so important, and it's everything. So share kind of, walk us through as much as we can, and we'll put some video to this, but walk us through what this data center looks like.
So it looks, it looks like a open room with large air conditioners. We call them computer room air conditioners, and they're all throughout the floor. They are taking all the hot air from the output of the servers and bringing it to the unit itself where it's cooling it and putting it under the floor, the cold air, which then comes out right in front of the cabinets where the cabinets are then inhaling that cold air because the processors put up a lot of heat when the customer's applications and traffic are very high. You have power distribution units throughout the floor, and that's basically like a breaker system that you have in your house for your lights and your dishwasher and everything. These power distribution units are redundant, so typically in a cabinet for a customer, if they brought their own hardware, their piece of equipment would have 2 power supplies. One plugs into one side of power, which would be the A side, and one plugs into the B side. So we have redundant power. If MLGW has a power outage on our A side, we have the redundant power on the B side. And we're always keeping the building at the appropriate cooling temperatures and humidity because the servers, if they get too warm, they will shut off. So that's a key component, along with providing the connectivity. Sometimes you'll hear where a connectivity partner in the city, a backhoe dug up a fiber optic line. Right. Well, we have multiple redundant paths out of the building so that if a backhoe were to get up a power line between us and the customer, there's multiple avenues of redundancy.
And so, I mean, that in and of itself is impressive. Talk about the cloud, because obviously that's a buzzword, but it's extremely important. And then the network access that goes along with all that. Yeah, sure. So the cloud adoption is really in its infancy, if you look globally. But here in Memphis, I guess, you've got the rigorous, medical, healthcare industry, along with logistics and manufacturing. They're picking it up. They're determining that there are applications that can be put in the cloud. And it gets confusing, right? You have the big players. You have Amazon, Azure, and Google. And when people think of the cloud, that's typically the first place their head goes. Where those organizations are really looking at, if you think of like an application like a Netflix, that's an application that's more cloud native. It's built for the cloud. So when you're at home watching a Netflix video and all of a sudden you're getting the spinner that it's kind of stuck, that application's built. It may have shut down that server all on its own and put up a brand new server, and then in 10 seconds your video restarts. That's a cloud native built specifically for the cloud application. The differentiator that Expedient offers is that we have built an enterprise cloud, where applications that aren't built in a smart way to build up a new server, they require redundant hardware, and they require a facility that offers the redundancy so that the hardware infrastructure will never go down, because the application is not smart enough to reheal itself. And so that's where the differentiators really play. But if you look forward now into 2018 and going forward, you hear the word multi-cloud. So now you have Azure, Amazon, and Google, the hyperscale cloud, the big boys that can offer infinite scale. We are able to work with them where customers are taking, so maybe their enterprise resource application or their big medical application, they're putting it in an enterprise cloud. And then they're leveraging someone like Google, Amazon, or Azure for maybe their mobile application or something a little bit different. So they're able to connect with Expedient or other providers from the hyperscale cloud, Amazon, Azure, and Google, to Expedient and have enterprise apps with 100% redundancy in an enterprise data center like Expedient, and then have the other applications that are built to have the self-healing in the hyperscale provider. Right. Talk about, so on your end, obviously you're on the forefront of technology. You are in the technology world. You also, too, when it comes to your philanthropy, you're heavily involved in organizations like the Society of Information Management, University of Memphis. These programs and these organizations that are focused on technology, but also to education. So share a little bit of that, kind of spinning off into the philanthropic side. Share a little bit of how you take the education and that sort of local approach to give back. Yeah, that's actually one of the reasons we chose Memphis. If I step back to your first question, one of the reasons is that local matters in Memphis, like all of our other cities, and thought leadership is valued. So when we come to open a city, we don't just come here and open up our business and send our salespeople out into the streets. We put our time and our talent into local business and community organizations. Society for Information Management is one example. The Greater Memphis IT Council is another. Obviously, we're members of City Current, and I'm on the advisory council for the University of Memphis. So we are bringing in either speakers from our organization
from our corporate office. We have a vice president of product strategy who sits on advisory councils for Intel, VMware, and Dell. But we'll also bring in industry experts from outside of our business into the local community to provide thought leadership around either current technologies or new technology trends.
So where do we go to learn more, to look at, if we have questions, where do you send us?
Well, I mean, obviously you go to Expedient, www.expedient.com. And actually there they've got, if you haven't seen the data center, we have virtual tours of all of our data centers. You can literally walk through and see what it looks like. But that website has a lot of our information that covers everything we've talked about today.
Well, Jim, I greatly appreciate all you're doing and appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you,
Jeremy. Thanks for having me.
Hope is a powerful word and motivator. It's defined as an optimistic state of mind that's based on an expectation of positive outcomes with respect to events and circumstances in one's life and the world at large. Hope is what inspires us and drives us to succeed, to dream big and do great things. But sometimes when bad things happen, hope can be lost. That's why it's so important that we have organizations in our community like Hospitality Hub and RestoreCorps that can step in during the darkest of times to provide support and resources that focus on restoring stability and normalcy, restoring hope. Likewise, it's important for companies to play an active role in not only providing peace of mind to their clients, like Expedient does with its state-of-the-art data centers, cloud services, and network access that keeps data safe and secure, but also support the efforts of nonprofits and programs that will restore hope in our community. When we power the good, we can also help inspire, lift, and restore hope to those in our community who need it most. Thank you for watching The Spark. To learn more about each of the guests, to watch past episodes, and share your stories of others leading by example, visit WKNO.org and click on the link for The Spark. We look forward to seeing you next month, and we hope that you'll join with us in creating a spark for the Mid-South.
Just like having relevant and accurate information is necessary to make sound hiring and lending decisions, being engaged in our community is important. DataFax is proud to support the positives and be a sponsor of The Spark.
Lipscomb & Pitts Insurance is honored to serve the Memphis community for over 60 years. We've always focused on supporting our community and believe in promoting the positives, encouraging engagement, and leading by example. Lipscomb & Pitts Insurance is proud to be a presenting sponsor of The Spark.